So I'll do the formal introduction. The video will start from this point. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our IBMS Support Hub in October. Delighted to be joined by Paula and Lisa. Sarah, sorry. Paula and Sarah, who are going to be talking to us about, because I was thinking about the word leadership. Leadership and management in pathology. Thank you so much for giving up your time to do the Support Hub for us today. I'm sure you'll have lots and lots of questions that people want to ask around leadership and management. So if you'd like to share, Paula, your slides, I'll just let people know while you're doing that. If you do want to ask anything, please do pop it into the chat as we're going along. I am going to go through and unmute and turn cameras on, enable cameras for everybody. So if there's anything that you would like to ask, you can just chip in at the end and we can have a conversation rather than you popping it in the chat. I'll facilitate the chat, so I will turn off my microphone and camera soon, hand over to Paula, who will then hand over to Sarah, and they'll go through their slides and talk to you about leadership and management. So without further ado, Paula, if you're happy to go.
Yeah. Okay,
lovely.
Great. You can see their slides, can you?
All looking fine, yes, thank you.
All right. Okay, great. So thanks very much, Sue. So thank you for inviting us along to the Support Hub today. Great to see so many of you here. So please eat your lunch in the background. I don't want to think of people going back to the lab starving, but great to see so many of you. Probably the first thing to say is that I am not a leadership guru by any shape or form, and the talk that I'm going to give you today is really based on my own personal experience. So my background is as a biomedical scientist, so I've been part of SHU for about 4 years now, but prior to that I worked for 25 years mainly in haematology and blood transfusion, over different grades, from band 5, band 6, band 7, and ultimately as a band 8 as a service lead. So this is where the kind of my experience comes from, and this is where this talk is coming from today. So moving on. There we go. Okay, so my remit for today was really to talk about leadership and management of laboratory services in terms of the skills that you need and how you might develop them. So what I've tried to do is put together a little bit of a toolkit for you, some support that actually I think perhaps I would have benefited from as I was a sort of a fledgling senior or moving from band 6 into band 7 roles, to look at how we can develop those leadership and management skills for whatever line of career that you are aspiring to. Leadership is part of all of our jobs these days, no matter what kind of role that you're at. But if you are thinking of moving into senior BMS positions or beyond that, where you have greater technical oversight or some managerial responsibilities, or you're specialising in terms of training, quality management, health and safety, etc., then there are clearly skills that are required, and we'll look at ways that you can develop them in whatever role that you are now. And Sarah's going to talk about some opportunities for postgraduate studies. This is the route to senior biomedical science positions. Most trusts these days are looking for a master's qualification or completion of the IBMS Higher Specialist Diploma. So Sarah's going to give you a little bit of guidance on that. The first thing to say, I guess, about leadership is that it means different things to different people. So the things that I admire in a leader, that I look to, that kind of tick the boxes for me, will be different to what they are for you, and that is fine. That is perfectly normal. Lots of definitions of leadership out there. If you like a definition, so Northhouse, who is a bit of a leadership guru, talks about leadership being a process where an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. Alternative definitions are around mindsets and behaviours that align people in a collective direction, working together, shared goals, adjusting to change. There's a kind of a theme, a general theme here, whatever definition you particularly like. We hear a lot about compassionate leadership these days. This is important within any organisation, but I guess for the NHS particularly, using your head and your heart to inspire and influence people so that they can inspire and influence others, and that's one that particularly resonates with me. This isn't a definition, it's a quote from an American leadership guru. I don't know much about John Maxwell, but I kind of like this. This makes sense to me. So if you imagine that, you know, sort of leadership is management is very much like being tossed around on the ocean. You have your pessimists who are complaining about the wind, the optimists who are waiting or expecting it to change, but it is the leader who calmly steps up and adjusts the sails and drives them all safely back to the shore. And this kind of sums it up really for me. So in terms of leadership skills, they are, some of them are listed here. This is not an exhaustive list by any shape or form, but hopefully these are skills that you recognise, that you associate with leadership, and that perhaps that you can start to see in your own roles, whatever that is, whether you are a band 5, band 6, band 7, band 8 or above, that these are attributes and qualities that we associate with good leadership. Okay, what resonates with you will depend on your experience. It depends on the type of person that you are, but so there are many more. So what we want to focus on today is in terms of how we can acquire these skills if we don't already have them, and what we can do to identify them within your current roles. I work a lot with apprentices, and leadership is part of their course. It's part of their training. It's part of everybody's training within the health service. But quite often I hear, well, I'm not in a management role. So how do I demonstrate and how do I develop those leadership skills? But I think it's really important to make that distinction between leadership and management. Leadership is not the same as management, and some of the best leaders that I have met in my career are not necessarily managers. But in terms of management, I think if you are a manager, then you should be a good leader. Okay. So you need to develop these skills. If you are wanting to progress into more senior roles, then you need to have these skills in place before you get there. And you need to have them in order to get there, to become one. Okay, I would expect interviews these days for more senior positions, for certainly service lead positions, band 8 and above, that we are looking for strong leadership skills as well as expertise in your scientific field. The good news is that you are already demonstrating these skills. You will be demonstrating these skills because you absolutely have to as part of your role as biomedical scientists. So I want you to think about somebody that you work with maybe, or somebody that you know or that you admire, whose behaviour, whose approach you would want to emulate. Okay. They might be managers, they might not be, but think about what it is that they do on a daily basis, or what it is that they're doing that you admire. Okay, because the chances are that whether you can articulate it or not, they are probably demonstrating leadership skills in abundance. Whatever they are doing, it's inspiring you. You are looking to them as somebody that you would like to be like. But developing those leadership skills, some people are blessed with them naturally, okay, but quite often it is a combination of education, of that practical experience, a bit of life experience sometimes, and your own kind of personal development. So we know leadership skills are important. I think we are much better these days at recognising the value of leadership at all areas of healthcare delivery and at all grades of staff, because leadership skills, if nothing else, they are essential for safety and successful and efficient delivery of the service that we provide, and ensuring that high quality patient care, our operational efficiency, that we are delivering a high performance, high quality service, an innovative service. You know, pathology changes all the time and we have to keep pace with that. And if you think about where things have gone wrong, okay, so the things that hit the news, so the Letbys, the mid-staffs, the Francis report, although leadership was not necessarily the cause of all these disasters that have happened, leadership comes up time and time again in the investigation of these incidences, in the investigation of these events, what went wrong, what could have been done to prevent these terrible things happening. And quite often it is a lack of accountability, a lack of responsibility, a blame culture that we see, where we have people who are frightened to speak up, people who are frightened to raise concerns about quality and safety of service. And this comes from bad leadership. We can have difficult conversations with people, and this can be done safely, it can be done compassionately, and in a way that we learn from mistakes. And we know that well-led teams, well-led services are safe, they are good places to work, service improves, morale improves, well-being improves. So this is a good thing, it is an important thing. It's important for you because you have to demonstrate it as part of your HCPC standards of proficiency. And if you read through these, leadership is all over them, but it specifically refers to them where it talks about how you need to understand qualities, behaviours and benefits of leadership, recognising that leadership is a skill that all professionals can develop and do demonstrate, and identifying your own leadership qualities and behaviours and approaches, thinking about EDI, for example, and other mandated sort of behaviours, and demonstrating leadership behaviours in a way that is appropriate to your practice. So you will be doing this. So you are in a leadership role, whether you know it or not, okay? And there are just a list of some of the skills that you will be demonstrating here on a daily basis. So think of your day-to-day job or day-to-day role, whatever grade you are, whether you are band 5, band 6, whatever your role, you will be doing all of this. And these are skills and qualities that are associated with leaders, okay? What we are not very good at is recognising when we are doing this and appreciating these skills in ourselves and in others. And I think this is the key really to progressing and demonstrating those skills moving forward. So if you are thinking you want to move into band 7 positions or above, or into senior management roles, you are probably already demonstrating a wealth of these leadership skills within your band 5 and band 6 role. But where you have roles with additional responsibility, with accountability for staff and for service, leadership skills are an absolute must. And you have to demonstrate this. And at interview or job application, you will be expected to provide examples of how you do. So you need to be able to articulate this. I don't think we're very good at developing these skills. We're better than we were, but a lot of it's about recognising them. It's about recognising where you are doing them and where you are doing them well or where you need to concentrate. So in terms of for you, where do you start? Oh, apologies. Reminders are coming up. It really does start with you. So you need to know yourself. So wherever you see something in bold and in pink from here on in, this is a leadership skill or a quality. So self-awareness is really, really important. Know what your strengths are. Okay, know what you're good at, appreciate what you're good at, celebrate what you're good at. Think about what needs further development and find out what these skills are. You can ask your managers, you can ask your colleagues, so this kind of 360-degree sort of appraisal of your leadership skills can be quite useful. And you can use this as personal and professional development opportunity. Asking people what they think about you requires an element of resilience, I would say. But again, this is another leadership skill. We have to learn to take feedback. We have to learn to act on that. You can raise it at your appraisal. Okay, put it out there that you are thinking ahead, that you are thinking of leadership roles. Setting those objectives and action plans for development is part of leadership. There are lots of leadership tools out there. A lot of them attract a bit of a fee, but the NHS Leadership Academy, there's a link here, is an actual free tool that you can use, which will help you to find out what sort of leader are you, okay? And think about, well, does this align with the sort of leader that I want to be? And from there, in terms of demonstrating the skills that you want to develop. So, stage 1, make a plan. Okay, so once you know what you're good at, what you're not, what you feel confident with, what you don't, develop some sort of an improvement action plan. We all have different skills, different personalities, elements of leadership that you find that you would feel quite capable, quite competent to deal with, to develop. Other people might not. So this is really individual to you. And identify opportunities within your workplace or potentially outside of your workplace to support that development. The NHS Leadership Academy, I've got a link to that in the resources, has lots of information to help you do this, to help you put those leadership skills to the test and to help you to develop them. You might do a leadership course. Again, there are courses on the NHS Academy. They are not free, unfortunately, but there are sometimes courses within your own trusts. Okay, as part of your mandatory training, some of them may revolve around leadership. Develop your ability at reflective practice. This is your best friend, really, in terms of development. And I will hold my hands up and say that I was never very good at this. I don't know that as scientists if we are always, but I found this quite hard to do. And it wasn't until I got into sort of leadership management positions that I realised the value of this in terms of analysing those situations that you struggle with or that you find difficult, making sure that, you know, you go back, you think, well, what could I have done differently? What do I need to do that differently if this situation comes up again? But also thinking on the things that go well. You know, we spend a lot of time reflecting over, you know, the bad day or the challenging situations, but we should spend as much time reflecting on the things that we are doing really, really well. But in terms of where you are now, what the best advice I can give you is to look around, look at your current role and just try to get perhaps a little bit more involved in things that are happening within your laboratory that will develop those important leadership skills. So consider a role in training. Okay, so you may be supervising, depending on your grade, will depend who you are supervising, but providing training support, mentoring others, okay, is part of developing others. It develops your supervision skills, your mentoring skills. These are leadership qualities. Is there is there a little project you could get involved in? It might be part of implementing a new analyzer. It might be a change of process. You might be looking at workflow through your laboratory that you could ask to take a lead on. So project management is a really good skill to have. There are always UCAS findings. So can you take the lead on perhaps addressing or resolving one of those issues as part of your quality management programme? You wouldn't necessarily have overall responsibility perhaps for signing this off, but if you could do a little bit of the donkey work, if you could do a little bit of the investigative work, then that's a really good opportunity, and your seniors, your managers will thank you for this. You're helping them. Think about working with other professional groups. So depending on your discipline where you're working, you may work very closely with clinical teams or you might not. It might be a question of working closer with another lab. But this is all about collaboration, about networking, team working, interprofessional working and learning, which is a valuable resource. Thinking about your service. So can you get involved in planning or organising rotas? I mean, a lot of these are delivered through e-rosters and things these days, and it's different. But you know, if your project management perhaps involves managing a little team of staff or working closely with a team of staff, thinking about the service, thinking about organisation, putting people in different places at different times, responding to sudden staff sickness by rearranging people's days, and delivering this compassionately, taking into account not just the needs of the service, but the needs and the well-being of the staff that are delivering it. This is great evidence if you can produce it. Think about becoming a champion. Champion something that is important to you. So it might be mental health and well-being. Okay, we all need a bit of help with that nowadays. It might be sustainability. Become a sustainability champion. Look at getting your laboratory through its green leaf certificate or something along those lines. It might be an EDI related issue or public engagement. Improving morale. Are you social secretary? Do you organise the social events that are so important in terms of building teams and building communities within our workplace? Training budgets are tight these days, so could you create some CPD opportunities for your team? A lunchtime seminar, a journal club, something that supports the development of you and the development of other people. You might ask for additional responsibility, okay, to gain a bit more experience, so maybe overseeing a small section, responsibility for managing EQA reports, an element of quality management, contributing to the resolution of issues such as UCAS findings, using your initiative. You will have to work within your limitations and within your scope of practice. Again, this is part of leadership, but can you push yourself a little bit? You will be noticed if you do this. Behaviour was always a big thing for me, and modelling positive behaviours, approaches to problems in the labs, how you project yourself is a huge part of your leadership kind of your leadership behaviours. So what sort of person are you? When there's a problem, when there's an issue in the lab, when there's difficulties, are you stomping down the corridor to your manager's office, joining the orderly queue of people who are already there with grievances and concerns? Or are you taking a step back, taking a balanced view, looking at what's happened, looking at why this has happened, talking to people, coming up with suggestions, resolutions, and going to your managers and saying, do you know what, this situation just isn't working. Can we try this? Can we do this? I understand what's happened, but we need to stop this happening again. That is negotiation, that is influencing, and these are really high-level leadership skills. In terms of managing and supporting change is inevitable in the health service. It's inevitable in pathology. Nothing stays the same. Our teams are changing all the time. Our departments are changing all the time. We're all part of networks these days. And change really it either brings out the best or the worst in people, really. But supporting people through that change process is a real skill. Encouraging people to identify opportunities. Call it out by all means if this is something that you don't agree with, if this is something that you don't think will work, but quite often, it is inevitable, and it's about making situations work, turning them into successes. And celebrate those successes when they happen. As I say, I don't think we do enough of that in pathology. Reflective practice, absolutely essential. Good leaders do this a lot, okay? You will learn more about yourself, you will learn about your strengths and weaknesses, and this feeds into your action plans. You can network, you can join events such as this, okay? So your IBMS support hubs, get yourself out there, meet other people, other professionals, other people working in your field. Networking is a really important skill. But keep a record of all these things that you take part in, because if you move forward and you're going for interviews, at some point, somebody's going to ask you, oh, tell me a time when you supported the delivery of a change in your laboratory service, or tell me about a time when you faced a challenging situation. So if you've got these written down somewhere that can come easily to hand, this will help you. As you move into senior leadership, and management roles. So though, leadership is important for everybody, it is absolutely essential if you are a senior leader or manager. There is absolutely no excuse these days for not having those skills. And this isn't just about knowing you, but it's about knowing your team, knowing your service and the wider organisation, the NHS, your trust of which you are a part. So start to familiarise yourself with wider issues, NHS policies, procedures, organisational structure. So we come into this profession as scientists, but once we get to this kind of level, really we become HR managers, we're business managers, we have to be an expert in accountancy and strategy and policy and compliance. And so all of a sudden, you move out of a zone that you are quite comfortable in. And I don't think we're necessarily very good at teaching people about this before they get into a role. You learn a lot of this on the job. You'll be managing staff, managing personnel, dealing with difficult conversations, difficult HR issues, managing change all of the time. And these are skills that we need to build in, or you need to build in kind of before you get there, if you can. Now, if you're a band 5 or a band 6 BMS, training budgets are probably not going to stretch to you going on a finance course or a business management course, which is going to help you in these roles. But there are things that you can do. So you can show an interest. You can talk to your seniors, your senior management about their role and their own particular journey. You can raise it as an aspiration in your appraisal. This shows that you are keen. This shows that you are motivated. You can demonstrate those good leadership behaviours. They will spot you. They will spot you a mile off. Shadow your senior staff if you can. What activities are they performing? Think about the leadership skills that they are demonstrating while they're doing this. And in terms of supporting practical skill development, there are courses that you can do. So the NHS Leadership Academy is a really valuable resource, but look at your own trust training catalogue. There may be opportunities there that there may be online learning that you can do that can support this. In terms of the career pathway as it is at the minute, in many trusts, most senior BMS positions require an MSc or the IBMS Higher Specialist Diploma. So talk to your training officers and managers about the opportunities, the chances of you being supported to do this, if there is any support available. Training budgets, as I say, have been cut. LBR budgets are cut. Think about what your options are in terms of further study. Sarah's going to talk to you a little bit about MSc opportunities, but explore the different options that are available. We traditionally go for very science-based MSCs, and if your direction of your career direction is very much about advancing your practice, then this is perhaps the general direction that you want to go in. But quite often employers are looking for those leadership skills, leadership qualifications. So a healthcare master's, something is around leadership and management in a healthcare environment might serve you well. But talk to your managers, talk to your training officers. What is it they want when you're making that decision? If you're investing in an MSc, you want to make sure that you do the right one. There are apprenticeships. There are level 7 apprenticeships that will support you in this role. So these are hard work. They are not for the faint-hearted, but there are no fees associated with this. So contact your apprenticeship departments, have a look what is out there and see if there is an opportunity for this. And that, I think, apart from the resource side, is me done. So I have put you some resources here, mainly from the Leadership Academy, but there are some other ones there. There's the IBMS mentoring scheme if you wanted to get involved in that. Really good leadership development. So when Sue shares these slides, you'll be able to access the link. But I'm going to hand over now to Sarah, who is going to talk to you a little bit about master's qualifications.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I feel like I should start by disclosing that I am not a BMS, but I am one of the individuals who is responsible for overseeing a lot of our healthcare associated postgraduate programs within our department, and just running with the train of thought of CPD. I wanted to give you a bit of an outline of the different programs that are available to you within our university. So I'm just going through our slides here. So we have seen increasing numbers up to a few years ago of NHS students who have been coming to the university to complete MScs with us. I obviously understand that the funding landscape has changed, and that really impacts the number of individuals who have the opportunity to come along, but I thought it would be worthwhile going through our different programs that are available to you, trying to give you a little bit of insight into what these different programs entail, and to talk to you a bit about how the MScs are structured and assessed. So I fully acknowledge that there are going to be individuals here from across the country, so not everybody is completely Sheffield based. So why would you want to consider coming across to SHU to do your MSc? So if you look kind of at our previous reputation, we have a really strong focus on what we call research-led teaching. That means that all of our practical programs, not practical master's programs, sorry, that we develop have a really, really strong practical element embedded within them. And that's our prime focus. We're currently in a phase where we are restructuring from our old programs to our new programs. And as we're going forward into that period of restructure, ready for a launch of our new programs next year, the key thing that everyone is thinking about is how do we emphasize the research that we do and embed it within our taught programs. So we want you to be exposed to cutting edge techniques. We want you to be working alongside relative individuals who are at the forefront of that discipline, whilst obviously providing you with the knowledge and practical experience that you can then take, and that will align nicely back with what you are currently doing in practice. So we are a big research-led teaching university with a huge number of research active staff who will be helping deliver the content of these programs. So this is an overview of the different research facilities that we have embedded within our department. So we have the Biomolecular Sciences Research Centre. That is the facilities in which we perform all of our research. So we have a number of different cell culture laboratories. We have a microscopy suite. We have an analytical facility, well, a big analytical facility. We offer microbiology facilities, mass spec facilities, a lot of molecular biochem and chemistry laboratories. So in terms of how we are set up for that practical side, we're a little bit different to some universities in that we often will take students down into our personal research facilities to help them train them up on cutting edge techniques. So it's not a situation where you're going to be coming into the university and learning about practical techniques, different practical experiences that you are already probably really well versed in. We do bring you down into our personal research facilities where we have all our PhD students and postdocs and research associates, and we help embed you in kind of that forefront of our research. So we like to take all of our postgraduate students and we use them in a sense to help us with our research development, and we help them understand what it is to be a real scientist and a real researcher. In terms of how these courses are structured, and I think this information is key if you are considering coming to us to do a master's program, because obviously you are going to want to try and potentially be doing this alongside your current vocation. So the master's program in total is a 180 credit program for the full MSc, and the MSc can be studied on both a full-time or a part-time basis. All of the NHS students that we have had in the past come to us have chosen to partake that through a part-time route. We also offer an MRes program, which is a Masters of Research program. But because of the way that is structured, we can only really offer that as a full-time program. So if you are looking into our programs and you're trying to decide what program may work for you and your circumstances, then just be aware that whilst the MSc can be operated on a part-time schedule over 2 years, the MRes really does need to be run full-time over a 1 year of study. There are also alternatives, or there are qualifications that you can gain as part of our postgraduate program. So what I have seen has become increasingly popular over a number of years is maybe not individuals who want to come to us just to study the full MSc. We have a number of individuals who come to us who just want to pick up certain modules for CPD. So certain areas, certain topics, subject areas that they would like a little bit more advanced knowledge in, a little bit more practice in. And so we also offer a postgraduate diploma, which is 120 credits worth of content, and we offer a postgraduate certificate, which is 60 credits worth of content. And when I'm saying credits, I mean that these are a series of courses that you can obtain by completing various modules. Each module will hold a credit-bearing amount. With our new programs, these credits are going to either be 20, 40 or 60 credit modules. So just to run through the structure of our semesters here, in the first semester that runs from September until Christmas break essentially, and then we have an exam period in January. With our new structure, you will be looking at taking or undertaking a 20 credit module and a 40 credit module in that first semester. Now, if you choose to take a part-time route, what you will likely be doing is you'll be taking a 40 credit module in year one, semester one, and then you'll take that subsequent 20 credit module the year after. We try, when we are delivering this program over a part-time route, to package it for you so that the majority of your taught content is condensed into a one-day period, and then you have a second day potentially in that week where you would be required to come onto campus for a laboratory class. So we try to package the program so that it can run at a most over 2 days. Occasionally, you may find a situation where you may have some taught content outside of that period, but we do record every single taught session that we deliver, and that is the opportunity to obviously catch up on those sessions outside of those 2 days if it's necessary. So an example would be if we're running a laboratory session from 9 till 5 on a Wednesday, and there was a follow-up workshop on data analysis later in the week, we'd always make sure that we record those sessions so they can be also accessed at a different time. Within our second semester, you will undertake 3 20 credit modules. That is an elective element to that. And then in the final trimester, you undertake a 60 credit research project. And this is what I get a lot of questions from individuals, particularly within the NHS, who are coming to us on a part-time basis. Because that 60 credit research project is an independent research project that you conduct in our laboratories alongside a research active member of staff. You, in a sense, get to help decide on what that project's going to be. You help design that project, and then you carry it out under the remote supervision, as I said, of someone who is research active. And that usually is full time. But what we have traditionally done, if there are individuals who are working in practice who cannot come onto campus for a full-time basis, is we allow those individuals to complete that research project in their place of work. As long as that project aligns with the learning objectives of the module, and as long as the workplace supervisor of that individual is happy for that to happen. So we've had a number of different projects operate this way within the NHS, and it can be anything through validating a new assay, or looking into a new piece of equipment, or maybe comparing a more traditional to a newer assay for a particular type of diagnosis. So they usually run really smoothly. You'll have a member of staff who is associated with the project both within the university, and they will communicate with your workplace supervisor to make sure that that project can be run alongside your normal work activities. The MRes, just in case anyone is interested in that particular program, as I said, we have to run the MRes full time just because of the way that it works, is you have semester 1 of taught content, and then you have 2 semesters of an extended research project where you are brought down into the Biomolecular Sciences Research Centre. You become embedded within one of the core research groups within the university. So we have like disease systems, microbiology, cancer biology, analytical chemistry, and so forth. And you become really part of that research community very much in the same way as a first year PhD student. So attending conferences, attending research meetings and presenting your data on a regular basis. But as I said, because of the way that you're embedded into that research group and you have that elongated research project, this is something that we tend to run full time. Again, why do you want to choose us? There are many applied universities across the UK that, you may believe deliver similar programs. We do have some pretty strong metrics if you want to look at what our previous students have thought of us. So if you look at things like the PRES, so the Postgraduate Research Experience Taught Survey, and the PTES, the Postgraduate Taught Experience Survey, we consistently score not just beyond the university average, we are way above the sector average across the board. We have a really strong focus on student voice, so we continuously seek feedback from our students so we can continue to improve our programs. There is as I said, because of our really strong laboratory focused element, we get really good marks for things like skills development, research, and so forth. We're a really strong research community, and I think that if you are considering doing an MSc, then have a look at what the previous students have thought about the program, because that really gives you that on the ground feedback of those individuals who have taken it previously. So do not just believe my word for it, and please feel free to do a little bit of research yourself and have a look at that feedback from previous students and what they think about that program. I also wanted to talk a bit about opportunities outside of the course that maybe you could get involved in as part of this program. Something that when Paula was speaking that really stood out to me was she was talking about public engagement, and this is something that we play a huge role in here at the university. So when you study with us, you have the opportunity to become a STEM ambassador. And what that means is you get a kind of unofficial qualification whereby we can take you out with us into the wider community and help us as a volunteer for a number of our outreach activities. So we have a big focus as well on social responsibility. We want to make sure that the local Sheffield community understands what we're doing at the university with regards to research. As scientists, we know that we need to be able to communicate effectively our research to the wider population, and that really is something that we have a strong interest in. So we are currently working alongside Sheffield City Council. We are working alongside Museum Sheffield. We work with a number of local schools. We even work with organisers of music festivals, and we get out there into the community and we help discuss topical scientific issues with them and raise awareness of the research that we're doing here at the university. And our Masters volunteer base is a key part of that. We wouldn't be able to do it without them. It helps you again develop those skills that maybe you don't necessarily just get from in practice, that team working, that leadership, that communication skills that can also really help you with your career development. So that is something that I also wanted to emphasise. It's not just about the taught part of the curriculum, it's the wider opportunities that coming to university can also offer to you. So that, I think, is all that I had to say. If anybody wanted to ask me any specific questions outside of this session about the programme, please feel free to drop me an email. That QR code will also take you to our web pages where you can see a lot of information that you may also be interested in. And we're happy to have individual meetings with people who are considering coming to take our master's programme, either face-to-face if you're locally, or if not, we're happy to arrange some online one-to-ones just so we can answer any questions that you may have if this is something that you are considering.
Lovely. Thank you, Sarah and Paula. I'm just going to give colleagues a chance to just have a little think and to mull over some of the things that you said. Something that came in at the beginning, Paula, was around your own experience. So I'm a firm believer, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So one of the first questions was just a very potted history of how did you go from band 5 to band 8? What did you do along the way? Maybe that might be helpful for colleagues to kind of generate some questions about, oh, maybe I could do that. What should I do?
Okay, so my career I started out as a placement student. So I did the degree that I am now teaching on, ironically, and I had a placement in a year in a biochemistry lab. It was called chemical pathology in those days, so for the older people among us will know that was roughly how long ago that was. If you were pre-1994, these days it's acute biochemistry or clinical chemistry. So that was where it started for me, and I met a senior who was responsible for my training while I was there, and she was the first kind of leader I came across who I thought, do you know what, I want to do, not only do I want to do this job, but I want to get to that kind of senior level. Her demeanour, how she conducted herself, how she led her team, the respect that her team had for her, her expertise, her knowledge, and I just kind of thought, yep, that is what I want to do. So that was kind of like my sort of inspiration. When I graduated, I had a little bit of time working in medical physics with a fairly patient-centred role. Evoked potential work, so assisting with ECGs, EEGs, nerve conduction studies, which I enjoyed, but I kind of knew that I wanted to be in a lab, really. And a job came up at the Children's Hospital, which is where I did my placement, but this time in the haematology laboratory. So I crossed to the dark side, as my biochemistry colleagues told me, and I started work as a trainee biomedical scientist. At the time, it was pre-portfolios, so I became a specialist biomedical scientist after 2 or 3 years and completion of a master's, which I did part-time, which was a joint master's between Sheffield Hallam and Uni of. So it was day release, 1 day a week, hard work. It was hard work, and that meant that I was eligible for a senior BMS position at that point, which I got. Internally, and then subsequently with different changes, I just kind of ended up working my way up. So when I left, before I came back to university here, I was the haematology service lead, so I was a Band 8A at that point. So I just kind of progressed. So there was some scientific development in terms of expertise, in terms of technical knowledge and understanding. In terms of leadership, skill development, and how you become a senior, there was no training. There still isn't a lot of that these days. You know, one day you're a scientist and you're taking instruments apart and you're analysing QC and you're reporting on patient work, and the next minute you're dealing with HR issues and you're dealing with, well, this budget statement doesn't look very pretty, and oh, by the way, we're going through massive organisational change, and could you just go to this meeting and meet these people you've never met before? And these are the things that nobody prepares you for, and you learn on the job. But I think for you guys, we can do that better now, okay? And sometimes you move into a role like that, and I loved it. I think the jump from Band 6 to Band 7 is the biggest. Okay, was the biggest jump for me. From Band 7 to Band 8, it was okay, but I kind of knew what was coming. But I think it's really about supporting people so that they've got those skills before they move into these roles, so you don't feel overwhelmed, you don't feel out of your depth, because then we just lose people, and we don't just lose good leaders, we lose good scientists as well, and we don't want to do that at this precise moment in the health service. So that was my kind of potted history, really.
Lovely. And that's where the idea for the support hub came from, wasn't it? We had a chat at Congress last year and that's exactly what you said to me. There's a gap. People suddenly find themselves in this position and they're not ready. They've not had things to help them. So one of the things that I'm really keen to do is to ask for what would be helpful, not just in your experience, but anybody else who is on the support hub today. If you are in that position, what was helpful for you, or what would you like the Institute to do? Because I'm aware leadership and management, although we have the CEP and we have some other qualifications, it is a bit of a gap for the Institute as well. I'm keen that these support hubs are helpful, and we have like toolkits. So, you know, I know you've got the resources that you've put into your slides and things, but if there are things that we would be able to do that we can signpost people to and help people, I'm really keen that we do some of that as well. So if anybody's got any ideas, if you found something helpful yourself, if you're looking at leadership and management and you've noticed any gaps, if you want to pop it in the chat, then I can pick it up from there, or you can email me after the session if you want to. One question that's come in while we've been talking is, did you need a teaching qualification to be able to lecture? So when you moved into your academic role?
No, not to get the job. I had to commit to doing one. So Hallam are really keen that all their lecturers have fellowship of the Higher Education Authority. So we had to do a teaching course, which I really, really needed. So I had trained in the workplace. I had competency assessed. So I taught in that capacity, but I'd never actually stood up in a lecture theatre and actually delivered a lecture. So most universities will offer you a kind of, they call it the staff course. It's a development opportunity, which was absolutely brilliant. So I had to do that. It took about a year, and that was a postgraduate diploma.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to interject there that when you are, senior and working in practice, that a lot of applied universities will value that very highly. And there are a lot of opportunities out there. We often have taken on people who may not have come from that traditional kind of PhD or teaching qualification route because they have that relevant experience in practice.
I was going to say exactly the same, Sarah. That's how people normally get in. So people tell me they end up training because they're good with people. So it's like, oh, you're good with people, you can do that now. And then when they've been doing training for a while, then universities go, oh, you're good at training, you could do teaching now. And people kind of move sideways, don't they? But they have a natural ability to explain things. That's kind of how they've ended up in a training role. And you're right, that's a really good way to test the water, isn't it? If that's something that people are interested in, if they're asked to do visiting lecturing, it could just be an hour or two a year, not a huge commitment, and test the water. And all of the universities with accreditation, we ask them when we go and visit, who are your visiting lecturers, who is in practice, how do you know it's current, how are they inputting into the delivery of your programme. So that's a nice sort of connection, isn't it, between your current role now and what you did previously.
Yeah, and it's amazing actually the number of transferable skills. So I felt a lot more confident and more comfortable in this role than I ever thought I would. I work in a very nice department, but it is, students that are coming to you with problems, with issues, with problems and issues that my staff would have come to me with before. And that bit of life experience, that bit of experience of being able to put some of my kind of professional practice into my teaching, whether that's using case-based learning and scenarios, very hands-on kind of stuff, or whether just modelling professional behaviours, which we would expect biomedical scientists to be able to perform at any level. So there's an awful lot of that is transferable. So I never thought I'd leave biomedical science. I never thought I would leave the lab. I thought they'd carry me out of there in a box. But this was an opportunity that I hadn't seen coming that came, and I'm really glad that I took it. I didn't want to leave the profession, and I don't feel like I have.
And I would also add on that we have also had previously a number of individuals who've come predominantly from NHS, different aspects, pharmacy, BMS and so forth, who've come to the university and then have kind of rediscovered a passion for the research side of it and have then gone on to do PhDs within the department that have been supported by the department itself alongside working full-time. So that's also something that I think can be appealing depending on what you're interested in.
And when we go back to the beginning, when you were talking about leadership and taking on those roles, Paula, you were talking very much about archiving, keeping a note of things. Sometimes we're very busy people and we don't always take that time to recognise when we've done something that might be useful. And it's not until you stop and you do that bit of reflection that you go, oh, actually, I can retrofit this leadership and management experience, because you're right, we do it all the time in different roles, don't we? And it is an expectation of the HCPC that we are doing that at different levels. So I think one of the best bits of advice that you said right at the beginning is to just keep a log, to keep, one of my friends does something that's really, really simple, just has an Excel spreadsheet and literally puts what the activity was, when the date was, and a little bit of a summary, just so they don't forget. And they file emails in a particular folder that just, any courses they've been on, that kind of thing. So then it's much easier to refer back to, isn't it? To say, oh, what did I do? When was it? What was it useful?
Yeah, totally. In terms of preparing for interviews and things like that, that is your most valuable resource, really. So if you were students, we would ask you to keep some form of portfolio, but it can just be a notebook. It can just be a log of reflection. So this is what happened. Lots of different models of reflection, but kind of what was the situation, what went well, what didn't go so well, how did you feel, what do you want to do differently if you came over that situation again? And these are all really good examples that you can use for those really tricky interview questions, which I would expect leadership to be a part.
Yes, definitely. And that's one of the reasons that people are asking you to apply for those roles or see that potential in you, is because you are exhibiting some of those skills already.
Absolutely.
So I think
Yeah.
sometimes it's about self-confidence, isn't it? That you know that you're doing them and you can give examples that you're doing them.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, people associate leadership too much with management, and it's not the same. You should be a leader if you are a manager, but you don't have to be a manager to be a good leader. And I think what we're not very good at is recognizing those qualities in ourselves and saying, oh, actually, I did this today. Even if you just, it's chaos in the lab and you've reorganized your rotas and you've reprioritized the workflow in order to make sure that the urgent work gets out. Somebody's off sick, so you're covering, all that agility, that adaptability, that flexibility. There is so much of all these leadership skills in everything that you are doing across all grades. It's just plucking them out and saying, look, this is how I show it, this is how I adapt it. And do the things that you're not comfortable with. Every leader is different, and what you admire in different leaders is different. So my line manager, who I work very closely with at band A level, he was great at dealing with kind of like staff issues, when people were falling out and, or if there was a competency issue. We didn't have a lot of it, but sometimes you really had to sit people down and have those quite tricky, quite uncomfortable conversations. I really hated all that kind of thing. So he would do that sort of thing. We would play to our strengths. And that was areas that I tried to work on. I tried to deliver. It was my own kind of resilience, really, and having that thick skin that I think you need. He hated the finance meetings that we had to go to. He found them incredibly stressful, but I wasn't bothered about that at all. Finance is what it is. The bottom line is the bottom line. And as long as you can justify how you've got there, it didn't matter to me. But it's just about trying to make yourself, if you know there's something you think, oh God, I'd hate to have to deal with that, I'd hate to have to address that, try and think, well, what are those skills that are missing, and what could I do to get them? And some things will be out of your scope of practice, but a lot of this you're doing every day.
Yeah, Hertie's just put in the chat, some people haven't had an interview for a long time, so they put off applying because they're lacking confidence, and that's a really common thing, isn't it, to hear that? So I think one of the things that you could do to get ready is to look at the job descriptor, isn't it? They're freely available normally for different bands. What is it they're looking for? And I would suggest you do a really simple gap analysis. So if they're asking for something, you're not sure you've got it, or you're not sure what evidence you could give, look at it, and if you identify a gap, talk to your colleagues, because you're probably doing more than you think you're doing. And as you were saying, Paula, we're not always great as scientists at looking at ourselves and being proud of what we do and being able to articulate that really clearly. So I would look at what are they looking for, see if you can get examples of that, and then see if you can do a practice, not with the interview panel obviously, but see if you can just do a practice with somebody in a room, because saying it out loud and saying it in a coherent way is quite different to thinking about it, isn't it? So get all your ums and ahs and ers out of the way, and then you can kind of be confident in your answers. Do you think that would be something sensible to think about?
Absolutely, yeah. Pour over the person specs and you'll see what they will challenge at interview, what they will challenge on an application form, and just make sure you can put practical examples of how you are demonstrating those skills. Those leadership tools or that 360 assessment is really useful, because quite often, you'll be having a conversation with someone and they'll say, oh yeah, you're really good at that. When we're all a bit fed up in the lab and you come in and, you get us all motivated and you wouldn't necessarily see that. But if somebody else has seen that in you, then you are doing it and you can use that as an example. So don't be afraid to ask people what your strengths and weaknesses are, and use that at an interview.
Yeah. Hashim's asked if you've got experience of leadership and management outside the NHS or pathology, do you still need a special certificate in leadership? I think it's about applying, because you talked about transferable skills, didn't you? So I think it would depend on the role, wouldn't it? And what you would be leading and who you might be line managing. So I think it might depend on the role a little bit. Do you think the same?
Yeah, I think so. So obviously, I think probably for band 7 positions, it's still fairly hands-on, isn't it? So you're still expected to work pretty much as a biomedical scientist with some additional responsibility. Once you get to laboratory manager level, I mean, quite often my laboratory manager in the end wasn't a haematologist; he was a biochemist. So it doesn't necessarily matter as long as you have an understanding of the the whole process. But yeah, very much dependent, I think, on the roles. But if you have previous leadership and management experience, integrate that into what you're doing now. Reframe it in terms of what you're doing every day. If you have a leadership qualification, that's always going to go in your favour. If you've managed teams before, whether it's a team on an oil rig or a team in a lab, it's relevant.
Lovely. A couple of people saying they've got other meetings to go to. We are exactly at 1 o'clock, so I think we might close it there. Thank you so much, Paula and Sarah, for your time today, for giving the presentation. If anyone's got any further questions, then please let us know. The video will be available in a few days when our comms colleagues have trimmed it and put a nice things on the front and the end of the video. The slides I already have possession of, so we can ask them to circulate those to anybody who's attended today. And if you have colleagues who couldn't come and they would like to see the video, then please do let them know. It will be available on the website. So thank you everyone for joining us. Great to see so many people here, and thank you again for doing the presentation today. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.